Your blood test says you are fine. Your body says otherwise. There is one mineral that runs almost every muscle and nerve you own, and after 60, most people are quietly running out of it. The strange part is this. The standard blood test was never built to catch it. If you have been feeling more tired than the day should allow, if your legs cramp in the middle of the night, if your sleep has grown thin and your patience thinner, you may have been told that this is simply what getting older feels like. You may have been told it is stress, or the weather, or too much coffee, or not enough, and perhaps some of it is, but there is a quieter explanation that almost no one talks about, and it hides inside a number your doctor rarely looks at, because that number lies to everyone who reads it. Before we go any further, a short and honest word. Everything you are about to hear is for information and understanding only. It is not a diagnosis and it is not a prescription. If your symptoms are persistent or if they frighten you, the right next step is always a real conversation with your own doctor, someone who can see your history and your medications and your blood. Nothing here is a reason to change anything you are currently taking. Think of this as a map, not a set of orders. With that understood, let us walk into the story of the mineral that 8 out of 10 older adults are quietly missing. Its name is magnesium. You have heard the word. It sits on a shelf at the pharmacy in 100 forms, and most people walk past it without a second thought. But magnesium is not a minor player in the body. It is one of the busiest workers you own. It takes part in more than 300 separate reactions inside your cells. Every time a muscle contracts and then lets go, magnesium is there. Every time a nerve sends a signal, magnesium is there. Every time your heart beats, steady and even, magnesium is part of the rhythm that keeps it honest. It helps turn the food you eat into usable energy. It helps build the very bone that holds you upright. Take it away, even a little, and dozens of small systems begin to run rough, like an engine low on oil that still starts in the morning but no longer runs clean. So here's the first question, and it is the one that unlocks everything else. If magnesium matters this much, why does the blood test so often miss it? To answer that, you have to know where magnesium actually lives inside you, because it is almost never where the needle goes looking. Picture your whole body as a house with many rooms. If you gathered up all the magnesium inside you and asked where it stays, the answer would surprise you. Roughly 60 out of every 100 parts sit locked inside your bones, treated by the body as a savings account held in reserve. Most of the rest lives deep inside your muscles and your soft tissue, tucked inside the cells themselves, doing the daily work. And the amount that actually floats freely in your blood, the part a standard test can measure, is less than 1 part in 100, less than 1%. That is the whole problem in a single sentence. The common test reads the smallest, least representative pool of magnesium in your entire body, and then tells you that everything is fine. It gets stranger still, and this is the part that quietly betrays so many people. Your body treats the level of magnesium in your blood as something that must be protected at all costs, because your heart and your nerves depend on it staying stable minute to minute. So when your blood begins to run low, the body does not sound an alarm. Instead, it quietly opens the savings account. It pulls magnesium out of your bones to top up the blood and keep that number looking normal. The needle draws its sample, the level reads inside the healthy range, and the report comes back clean. But the bones are being emptied to pay for that clean report, and the tissues where magnesium does its real work may already be running dry by the time the blood test itself finally slips below normal. The shortage has usually been building for a very long time. That is why a doctor rarely orders this test, and why when it is ordered, the result can be so misleading. It is a mirror that shows you a calm face while the house behind you is slowly running out of supplies. Now, you might reasonably ask, is this really so common? Is it truly 8 out of 10? The honest answer is that a large share of older adults simply do not take in as much magnesium as the body is thought to need day after day, year after year. Surveys of eating habits show that most people fall short of the recommended amount, and the gap tends to widen with age. So this is not a rare disease found in a handful of unlucky people. It is a slow and ordinary shortfall spread across kitchens and dinner tables everywhere, and visible precisely because it is so common and so quiet. Which brings us to the next question. Why does this problem sharpen so much after the age of 60? Why do the years seem to tilt the whole thing against you? There are 3 forces at work. and they push in the same direction at the same time, which is exactly why the trouble compounds. The first force is absorption. When you are young, your gut is generous. It pulls a healthy share of magnesium out of the food that passes through. But with age, that generosity fades. The lining of the intestine takes up less of the mineral than it once did, so even if you ate exactly the same meal at 70 that you ate at 30, less of the magnesium inside it would ever reach your bloodstream. The door has narrowed. The second force is loss. At the other end of the system, your kidneys are meant to be careful, holding back precious minerals and letting only the excess go. But with age, the kidneys grow a little less thrifty. They let more magnesium slip away into the urine than they used to, so you are absorbing less at the front door and losing more out the back. The account is being drained from both ends at once. The third force is the plate itself. Magnesium is not made by the body. Every atom of it has to arrive through food, and the foods richest in magnesium are exactly the ones that tend to fade from an older person's table. Dark leafy greens, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and unsweetened cocoa are the great sources, and for many reasons, chewing trouble, smaller appetite, simpler cooking, tighter budgets, meals for one, these foods often appear less and less as the years go on. Softer, more processed, more convenient food takes their place, and processing strips magnesium away, so the supply shrinks at the very moment the body has grown worse at using what little arrives. Put those three forces together, poorer absorption, greater loss, and a thinner diet, and you begin to see why the shortfall is not a coincidence of old age, but almost a built-in feature of it, unless something is done on purpose to push back. And now we come to a part that catches an enormous number of people completely off guard, because it hides inside the very medicine cabinet they trust to keep them well. Certain common medications quietly increase the loss of magnesium, and a great many older adults take at least one of them every single day without ever being told about this side of the story. Consider the water pills, the diuretics, so often prescribed for blood pressure or for swelling. Many of them work in part by making the kidneys flush out fluid, and in doing so, they also flush out minerals, magnesium among them. The medicine does its job on the blood pressure, and at the same time, night after night, it can be draining the magnesium account a little faster than food can refill it. Consider the stomach acid reducers, the family of drugs often ending in the sound prazole, the ones taken for reflux and heartburn for years at a stretch in many cases. Omeprazole is the name most people know. These medicines lower the acid in the stomach, and it turns out that a certain amount of stomach acid is part of how the gut absorbs magnesium in the first place. Taken over a long enough time, this class of drug can lower magnesium levels enough that the makers themselves have had to warn about it. The relief from heartburn is real, but so is the quiet cost, and most people never hear the second half of that sentence. And there are others, including some medicines for the heart and for blood pressure, that nudge the same balance in the same direction. Now, hear this part very clearly, because it matters more than almost anything else in this entire video. None of this is a reason to stop taking your medication. Not one pill. These drugs are prescribed for good reasons, and stopping them on your own can be far more dangerous than the very shortage we are describing. The point is not to frighten you away from your medicine. The point is simply this: if you take a water pill or a long-term acid reducer or a blood pressure drug, then the subject of magnesium is worth raising with your doctor calmly at your next visit as a question, not as a decision you make alone in your kitchen. That single conversation, doctor and patient, out loud, is the whole aim. So what does this shortage actually feel like from the inside? How would you even know? This is where it becomes truly slippery, because the early signs are so ordinary, so easy to blame on something else, that almost no one connects the dots. It often begins in the legs, a cramp in the calf that seizes you in the dark, sometime after midnight, hard enough to wake you and leave the muscle sore into the morning. Most people shrug and call it a Charlie horse, a bit of bad luck, and go back to sleep, but magnesium is one of the switches that tells a tense muscle to let go and relax, and when it runs short, muscles grow quick to tighten and slow to release. A calf that clenches in the night can be one of the earliest whispers. Then there is the fine tremble, a slight, unsteady shake in the hands that was not there a few years ago, noticed most when you are tired or when you hold something still, and the twitch, that small fluttering pulse in the eyelid that comes out of nowhere and dances for a day or two before it fades. People find these things annoying and a little embarrassing, and they almost always blame stress or too much caffeine. Sometimes that is exactly right, but an overexcited, twitchy muscle is also a classic signature of low magnesium. because without enough of it, muscle and nerve fire too easily and settle too slowly. The shortage reaches the mind and the mood as well. Sleep that will not deepen, a night spent skimming the surface of rest without ever sinking into it, a low hum of anxiety with no clear cause, a sense of being wound one turn too tight, on edge for no reason you can name. Magnesium plays a part in calming the nervous system and steadying the chemistry of rest, so when it thins out, the whole system can feel jittery and raw, the way a room feels when the volume is turned up on everything at once. There is also the tiredness, and this one deserves special attention because it is the sign that sent so many of you looking for answers in the first place. Not the ordinary tiredness of a long day, the kind that a good night mends. This is a deeper, heavier fatigue, a sense that the tank never fully fills no matter how much you rest, that you are pushing through the afternoon on fumes. There is a real reason magnesium sits at the center of this. Your cells make their energy in the form of a tiny fuel packet, and that fuel simply cannot be used by the body unless it is bound to magnesium first. In other words, magnesium is not just involved in your energy, it is the partner without which your energy cannot even be spent. So when the mineral runs short, the fuel is there, but the body struggles to release it, and the result is that flat, drained feeling that no amount of sleep seems to cure. People carry this for years and call it age, when part of it may be a tank that cannot be tapped, and there is a plainer sign, one people rarely mention out loud. The bowels grow sluggish, constipation sets in or worsens. Magnesium helps draw water into the intestine and helps the muscle of the gut wall move things along, so when it drops, that movement slows, and the discomfort that follows gets blamed on age or diet without a second thought. Look at that list altogether: night cramps, trembling hands, a twitching eyelid, poor sleep, a nameless anxiety, sluggish digestion, and notice something uncomfortable. Every single one of them is easy to explain away. Every one of them gets folded into that great soft excuse, well, that is just getting older, and so the real thread running through them, a body slowly running short of one essential mineral, goes unseen for years, hiding in plain sight behind a dozen small complaints. Now we arrive at the heart of it in every sense of that word, because this is where a quiet shortage stops being a matter of annoyance and starts touching something that truly matters. Your heart is a muscle, but it is a muscle unlike any other, because it must contract and relax in a perfect, unbroken rhythm tens of thousands of times a day without a single rest for as long as you live. That rhythm is not magic, it is electricity, a wave of charged particles moving in and out of each heart cell in a precise and repeating pattern, and magnesium is one of the gatekeepers of that electrical dance. It helps control how charge moves across the walls of the heart cells, helping each beat begin cleanly and each cell reset properly before the next beat arrives. When magnesium runs low, that electrical steadiness can waver, the heart can become more prone to skipped beats, to flutters, to a rhythm that loses its even footing. Many people feel this as a thump out of place, a pause, a sudden gallop in the chest that comes and goes. Deficiency of magnesium has long been linked with these irregular rhythms, and doctors treating certain rhythm problems have used magnesium for decades as part of their tools. Now, be careful how you hold this. An irregular heartbeat has many possible causes, and it always deserves real medical attention rather than guesswork at home, but it is fair and honest to say that magnesium is one of the quiet background factors in the electrical health of the heart, and that a long-running shortage does the rhythm no favors. There is a second thread here too, and it concerns blood pressure. The walls of your arteries are wrapped in a thin layer of muscle, and that muscle can tighten or ease, narrowing the vessel or letting it open. Magnesium is one of the signals that tells that arterial muscle to relax and let go. Picture the difference between a garden hose pinched tight and the same hose open and easy. When magnesium is scarce, the arterial muscle can hold a little more tension than it should, and pressure that is already stubborn can become harder to bring down. This is one reason blood pressure sometimes refuses to settle even when someone is doing many things right, and it is one more reason the subject is worth raising with a doctor rather than carried alone. And here's the trap that catches so many. A person feels the fluttering heart, the restless nights, the tension, the pressure that will not behave, and they conclude that they simply have a heart problem or a pressure problem, full stop. A thing to be managed with one more pill. Sometimes that is the whole truth, but sometimes underneath the obvious diagnosis, a plain and correctable shortage has been feeding the fire the entire time, unnoticed because the blood test kept insisting that everything was fine. Once again, this is not a call to treat yourself, it is a call to widen the conversation you have with the person who treats you. There is one more piece to understand before we talk about what to do, and it explains why so many well-meaning attempts to fix these problems quietly fail. Magnesium does not work alone. It moves as part of a small team, and the members of that team lean on one another so heavily that fixing just one while ignoring the rest often accomplishes very little. The three that travel together most closely are magnesium, potassium, and calcium. Think of them less as separate minerals and more as a trio that has to stay in balance. Here is the piece almost no one knows. Your body has a very hard time holding on to potassium when magnesium is low. You can eat potassium, you can even be given potassium, and the kidneys will keep letting it slip away as long as the magnesium underneath it is short. In practice, this means that a stubborn potassium problem sometimes will not improve until the magnesium behind it is addressed first. The one quietly controls the other, and there is vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin that so many older adults are told to take. Vitamin D cannot simply switch itself on. It has to be converted step by step into its active form before the body can use it, and magnesium is a required helper in that conversion. So a person can swallow a large dose of vitamin D faithfully every morning and still gain far less benefit than they hoped, because without enough magnesium, the body cannot fully turn that vitamin D on. It is like buying premium fuel and forgetting there is no spark to light it. This is why chasing a single number rarely solves the puzzle. Push on calcium alone, or potassium alone, or vitamin D alone, and you may be tightening one bolt while the whole frame stays loose. Magnesium is so often the missing member of the team that steadying it first can be what finally lets the others fall into place. It is the quiet partner that makes the loud ones work. So after all of this, what does a sensible person actually do? Not out of fear, but out of care. The good news is that the first and best answers are gentle, ordinary, and already sitting in the grocery store, no prescription required. Food comes first, always. The richest and friendliest sources of magnesium are the dark leafy greens, spinach and chard, and their cousins, deep green and full of it. Add to that the seeds, especially pumpkin seeds, which are among the most concentrated sources you can find, and the nuts, almonds, and cashews chief among them. Add the beans and the lentils, quiet and humble and reliable. Add whole grains rather than their stripped white versions, because the magnesium lives in the very parts that processing throws away. And for a small pleasure, add real dark cocoa, unsweetened and honest, which is genuinely one of the better sources there is. There are humbler helpers too, quietly generous, that many people forget. A ripe avocado carries a good measure of it, and so does a plain banana, which is why both have long been friends of the tired and the cramping. Even the water you drink can lend a hand, since certain mineral waters and hard tap water carry magnesium that most people never think to count. None of this is exotic, none of it is expensive. A handful of pumpkin seeds, a bowl of beans, a plate of greens, an avocado, a square of dark chocolate. Small, ordinary choices made most days are how the account gets refilled the way nature intended, slowly and safely, with all the other nutrients that ride along in real food. Now, about testing and supplements, here's where you must let your doctor lead, and here's exactly how to make that conversation useful. You already know that the ordinary blood test can read normal even when your tissues are short, so simply asking for the standard magnesium test may not tell the full story. That very limitation is worth naming out loud with your doctor, so that the two of you can weigh your symptoms and your medications alongside any number on a page, rather than trusting the number alone. Bring the list of everything you take, especially any water pill or long-term acid reducer, and ask directly whether magnesium is something you should be paying attention to given your particular situation. And if a supplement ever enters the picture, know that not all magnesium is the same, because this too is worth discussing rather than guessing. The cheapest and most common form on the shelf, magnesium oxide, is also one of the most poorly absorbed, and it is the one most likely to send a person running to the bathroom without delivering much of the mineral where it is needed. Gentler and better absorbed forms, such as magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate, tend to be easier on the body and kinder to the gut. But which form and how much, and whether at all, are questions for your doctor and not for a stranger on a screen, because the right answer depends entirely on you, on your kidneys, on your medications, and on your health as a whole. The single most important rule remains the one we began with: talk to your doctor before changing anything. So let us gather the whole story into one clear thread before we part. There is a mineral that helps run nearly every muscle and nerve you own, that keeps the rhythm of your heart and the ease of your arteries, that quietly enables potassium and vitamin D to do their work. After 60, three forces conspire to leave you short of it: weaker absorption, greater loss, and a thinner diet, and certain common medicines can drain it faster still. The signs of the shortage are so ordinary, so easily blamed on age and stress, that they slide by unnoticed for years, and the one test most people trust to catch it was never built for the job, because it measures the smallest pool of magnesium in the body, and is propped up from your very bones to look normal until far too late. So the next time a blood test tells you everything is normal, remember what it cannot see. This mineral hides where the needle never reaches, and the fix often begins on your plate, long before it begins in a pharmacy. A bowl of greens, a handful of seeds, a square of dark chocolate, and one honest conversation with your doctor. That is where quiet health so often starts, not with alarm, but with attention. There is one more thing worth saying before you go, because it points the way to where we travel next. Everything we have spoken of today has been about what the body is missing on the inside, the slow shortage no test cares to see, but the body keeps another kind of secret, and it does not reveal it during the busy hours of daylight. It reveals it in the strange still hours of the early morning, at a particular time of night when the body quietly shows what it has been hiding all along. If you have ever woken at nearly the same hour, night after night, wide awake for no reason you can name, then that hour is trying to tell you something, and in the next video we will listen to exactly what your body is saying.